What's going on, guys? XollFury here, and welcome to a new show called Guild Wars 2 101. There hasn't been much news recently over the past couple of months, as I'm sure you are all aware, which makes things pretty dang hard to have a news show that is purely dependent on the latest news. So, I decided to come up with a new show called Guild Wars 2 101 that is significantly less dependent on the news. If there is any latest news, I'll be sure to mention it at the beginning of every video. But Guild Wars 2 101 is focused more on helping you guys understand Guild Wars 2 a lot better. So this show is going to be almost entirely viewer generated. That's right, I want you guys to write in and ask me questions. Anything you might be confused about in Guild Wars 2, or just anything you want a little bit more clarification on, or just want me to talk about. You can contact me in one of three ways. Number one, you can email in at XollFury@gmail.com. Number two, you can send me a personal message over YouTube. And number three, you can leave a comment. So with all that being said, today's topic comes in the form of a personal message over YouTube by YouTube user XZUX. I'm just going to call you a Z because it's simpler. But at any rate, he says this. Today I discovered your channel and I loved it. Guild Wars 2 video specifically. But I have some questions about the game. If you answer them, I would be very grateful. First of all, I didn't understand the weapon system. It's a little weird to see a mage using daggers, for example. But do I just change the weapons? For example, if I'm very far away from the enemy, as a mage, I start using the staff. Then when the enemy comes closer, I switch to my daggers. Use some skills, and then change the weapon back again to knock back the enemy, or something like that. Or do I need to choose a weapon and always use it? And what's offhand? And does the race change my nation/clothes? Or are some races stronger or faster or something like that? And what about race skills? Hope you answer my questions. Thanks for your time. See ya. Alright, so there's a lot of topics there. So let's just go ahead and start with the weapon system. To briefly go over the weapon system, each weapon has its own set of skills and abilities, meaning that whichever weapon you pick defines what you can do in combat. So for example, the warrior swords have a lot of bleed effects on them, whereas the warrior axes have a whole lot of burst damage. A better example is seeing a guardian with a scepter and focus, and also his other weapon set being a hammer or something. The scepter and focus is very much a support and ranged role, whereas the hammer is very much a in-the-fray, melee, just beating people up type of a deal. So you kind of get this idea where each weapon then has its own specific role to it. So how is that applied to the Elementalist, which is the mage in this? Well, the Elementalist is one of two professions that cannot switch weapons. Every other profession in the game, except for the engineer, has the ability to have two different weapon sets so they can switch out in the middle of combat. There you go. So like the Guardian, as previously mentioned, could have a scepter and focus on one weapon set, and then switch that out for a hammer. The engineer can't do this because of all of its tool belts and kits and stuff like that. And the elementalist can't do this because of its 4 attunements. Those attunements are each element, which is fire, water, air, and earth. So these attunements change the role of the weapon, rather than the weapon changing the role of you. Follow me on this. So the fire attunement for the elementalist has a lot of area of effect and damage over time abilities, whereas the air attunement has a lot of spike damage and burst damage, and earth has a lot of defensive abilities. So earth and water is a lot of healing and other support abilities. So earth and water are more support, whereas fire and air are a lot more damage. So in your scenario, as an elementalist, you could just be laying into somebody with air magic, and then when they get close, you could switch to earth and get some defensive things up, and I'm not sure on the state of all of the skills for the elementalist at this point, but some weapons might have some knockback in earth attunement, so, you know, you could use that, and then once you get a good enough distance away, you can just go back to fire or air. Alright, so I think that's pretty well covered. Moving on to your next question, which is, what is offhand? The vast majority of the population of the world is right-handed, which means that their right hand is their dominant hand. So your offhand is your non-dominant hand. So for righties, your left hand is your offhand. For lefties, your right hand is your offhand. Seeing as most people are right-handed, Pretty much the standard thing for every video game character is to be right-handed, which means that then your left hand is your offhand. Typically in combat, whenever you were to wield two different weapons, you would usually swing with your main hand first and then follow that with your offhand. So that's kind of where they're going with that. Sorry, I just realized I was recording with the light off. But anyways, as far as your question about the races is concerned, none of the races are better than any of the others. I put better in air quotes because, personally, I think the Char are the supreme race, but no one will be penalized if you go with the stupid Asura. I may have just incited anger in some people, but I cannot. So yeah, all of them are going to jump the same, they're all going to run at the same speed, they're all going to be pretty much the same as far as that's all concerned. The only difference lies in the racial skills, and I'm glad you asked about those. Racial skills are what define the races as far as actual play goes. A human warrior and a Char warrior will effectively be the exact same in combat. The difference comes in that they have different racial skills. These are not game-breaking, but they're nice to change things up. The humans have a couple of different things, mostly related around their gods. So one of them is the Hounds of Balthazar, where they can summon a small pack of wolves to fight for them for a little while. And they have a couple other things. The Char have one thing that is a mine. You place it on the ground and it detonates after a little while. And they also have something else called Hidden Pistol, which is just awesome because you just pull out a pistol and shoot somebody. It's just I think that's awesome. So yeah, you get little things like that which change each race. So yeah, that's about it for your questions. I hope I answered them all in an adequate fashion. And if any of you else have any kind of questions or concerns or comments or anything, feel free to contact me and, well, leave a comment or contact me in any of the other previously mentioned ways. But that's me done for the day. I certainly hope you guys enjoyed the video. I apologize for having very little content last week. Adobe Premiere kind of crapped out on me, and yeah, I was very frustrated. But anyways, that's all behind me, so I'm hoping to have a full week of content this week, and I will see you guys next time. Hey, sorry guys, I completely forgot to mention the latest news, which is a new blog post called The Savage Pride of the Jotun, where it talks about the race of giants called the Jotun. Link in the description. Go check it out as always. Later.